Subsidies. Subsidies are paid to producers by the government. The government may pay subsidies with the aim of encouraging the production and consumption of goods and services with positive externalities, for example, merit goods. A subsidy increases the supply of a good or service to the right. That is, the supply curve shifts to the right. Subsidies can be used to encourage the purchase and use of goods and services which reduce negative externalities, for example, public transport to reduce pollution, or as a support for firms to help them gain more international competitiveness. Both consumers and producers can gain from a subsidy. In the diagram, so the first thing to note then on the diagram is the total cost of the subsidy to the government. Well, our new output level is Q1. So that's our new output level after the subsidy. So you can see the subsidy shifted to the right. Look, we can see that this is the subsidy per unit. We times that by the quantity along this axis, and this will give us the total cost to the government of the subsidy. You can see that the producer, the consumer, was originally paying price P. But after the subsidy, there was an extension in demand from Q to Q1, and they were now paying just P1 after the subsidy. So the benefit to the consumer of the subsidy is this blue area. The benefit to the producer of the subsidy is this top area. It should be pointed out that the proportion of the subsidy producers and consumers benefit from depends on the elasticity of demand of the product and demand curves. So for instance, if demand were to be inelastic or perfectly inelastic, the price, the shift in the subsidy would mean that the price fall is largely enjoyed by the consumer. So I'll just show you that now. So you can see that the price fell from P1 to P2, okay? And that's been a huge fall in price. And you can see from the diagram that the consumer has enjoyed that huge price fall times by the quantity. And that total area in blue is the benefit to the consumer of the subsidy. It's not to say the producer hasn't benefited, but only by this rather tiny area at the top. So when demand is inelastic, what you find is that consumers will benefit from much lower prices. One final point to make, however, is that sometimes subsidies might be given directly to consumers rather than the firms themselves by the government. There are advantages and disadvantages to subsidies. So the advantages to subsidies: the benefit of goods with positive externalities is internalised. For instance, the cost of these externalities is covered by the government subsidy, so the price of the goods is reduced, and what it would be in the absence of the subsidy. Subsidies can change preferences. Producers will supply goods with positive externalities, and consumers will consume them and receive the benefits from them. Also, making a merit good cheaper by the presence of a subsidy makes it more affordable and increases demand for it. The positive externalities are still present. For example, if a subsidy is paid for wind farms, the wind farms will still reduce pollution levels. Subsidies can support a domestic industry until it grows to the point they can exploit economies of scale and become internationally competitive. Disadvantages to subsidies: it can be difficult to put a monetary value on the benefit of the positive externalities. Any subsidy is an opportunity cost. The money spent on it might be better spent on something else. Subsidies may make producers inefficient and reliant on subsidies. The subsidy means the producers have less incentive to reduce costs or innovate. The effectiveness of subsidies depends on the elasticity of demand. Subsidies won't significantly increase demand for inelastic goods, as we've just shown. Simply, they just largely reduce the price. For subsidies to have a huge impact on increasing the quantity of a good, the demand for the good must be elastic. Finally, the subsidised goods and services may not be as good as those they're aiming to replace. For example, imported goods may be better quality than the domestically produced alternative a subsidy is promoting.